The Potato, Chapter 1, Acreage, Distribution, Production, and Valuation. The potato is one of the most widely cultivated of the agricultural plants. The esculent tubers, which are developed underground on slender leafless shoots or stems, are used for food and also industrially. The plant is allied botanically to several powerful narcotics, such as tobacco, henbane, and belladonna, and also to the tomato, eggplant, and capsicum. The potato comprises about 25% of the food of European and English-speaking peoples. Only the Oriental peoples exist without it. A greater weight of potatoes can be produced to a unit area than any other food crop. The yield in millions of tons of the world's most important plants is shown in the following table. So, Table 1. World's crops of the most important food plants in million tons, average for 5 years, 1908 to 1912. Potatoes, 161 million tons. Corn, 128.38. Wheat, 106. Oats, 65.6. Rice, 55.6. Rye, 57. And barley, 33.41. Note for rice that this figure does not represent the rice crop of the world, as statistics from certain sections of China are lacking. The average annual production of potatoes in the world for the last 10 years has been over 5 billion bushels. The production of wheat, corn, and oats has been approximately 4 billion bushels each. Potatoes, therefore, lead the other crops in total production. This immense total world production is generally and widely distributed. The 6 leading countries and their average annual production for the years 1911 to 1913, and the average yields in acre for the years 1904 to 1913 are as follows. See Figure 1. All right, Table 2. Total production in bushels. Germany, 1,698,826,000. Average yield an acre in bushels, 200.7. European Russia, the total production in bushels is 1,258,120,333. Their average yield an acre in bushels is 106.4. Austria-Hungary, 642,149,000 bushels, and their average yield an acre in bushels for Austria-Hungary is 134.35. France has a total production in bushels back in 1917, I guess, of 499,523,666. Their average yield an acre in bushels is 130.2. The United States total production in bushels was 348,303,000, with an average yield an acre in bushels of 96.5. The United Kingdom, the total production in bushels was 259,482,666, and the average yield an acre in bushels for the United Kingdom was 210. About 90% of the world's crop is grown in Europe, Germany, and Russia, producing more than half of the total crop. Again, that's back in 1917. The United States produces only about 1/5 as much as Germany. This is largely due to the fact that the German consumption per capita is about 2.5 times as great as ours, and that more than 50% of the German crop is used either for stock food or for conversion into starch, alcohol, or other industrial byproducts. Potatoes at present are used very little for these purposes in this country, less than 1% being so employed. Table 3. Percentage of world's potato crop produced by the continents and principal potato-producing countries for the years 1908 to 1912. In Europe, 4,817,830,200 bushels, which was 89.72% of the world's crop. In North America, there was 425,239,800 bushels, with 7.92% of the world's crop. Asia had 54,329,000 bushels, with a little more than about 1.01% of the world's crop. South America had 38,931,000 bushels, with 0.73% of the world's crop. Australia had 13,813,600 bushels, with 0.26% of the world's crop. Africa had 4,793,200 bushels, with just 0.09% of the world's crop. The principal countries were Germany, with 1,624,801,000 bushels. And in 1908 to 1912, Germany's percent of the world's crop was 30.25. Russia had 1,209,513,400 total bushels. And Russia in 1908 to 1912 had 22.52% of the world's crop. Austria-Hungary, 664,538,200 bushels, with 12.39% of the world's crop. France, 514,542,200 bushels, with about 9.58% of the world's crop back then. And the United States, 346,119,200 bushels, with about 6.45% of the world's crop in 1908 to 1912. The cultivation of the potato is now extended over most of the agricultural sections of the United States and Canada, and it is becoming increasingly important as an article of human food in this country. It ranks 6th in agricultural importance in the United States. Relative value of crops in the United States in dollars from 1908 to 1912. Corn in the United States was valued at $1,512,780,000. Hay in 1908 to 1912 was valued at $768,330,000. Wheat, $666,940,000, 1908 to 1912. Did I say cotton? $724,710,000. Oats, $412,360,000. Potatoes. In 1908 to 1912, potatoes brought in $209,720,000 in the United States from 1908 to 1912. Barley brought in $107,710,000, and tobacco back then $94,429,000. In the table 3, the percentage of world's crop, there's a note down here that it's the average of world's crop for 1908 to 1912 with 5,369,590,000 bushels. Let's see, this figure, all countries from which data are obtainable, 4,692 million bushels, United States 289 and a quarter. That's potato yields of the world. Potatoes' average annual production in countries from which data are obtainable in millions of bushels average for 1903 to 1907 inclusive. United States Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Statistics, figures in countries represent production in millions of bushels. The following table illustrates graphically the distribution of potato growing in the United States. See Figure 2. In the United States, New York has led in potato production for the last 25 years. The leading states and yield to the acre are as follows. Table 5. State, New York. Production in millions of bushels from 1911 to 1915, 33.35 millions of bushels. The yield to the acre from 1906 to 1915 for New York was 97. And the average price of a bushel 1906 to 1915 in New York was 63 cents. Michigan had 33.27 millions of bushels, 94 yield to the acre, and 59 cents a bushel. Wisconsin had 32.80 millions of bushels, 102 yield to the acre, and 87 was the average price in cents. Minnesota had 30.04 millions of bushels, 102 to the acre, and 44 was the average price in cents in Minnesota. Maine had 25.67 millions of bushels in 1911 to 1915. 204 was the yield to the acre, 1906 to 1915. And 54 was the average price a bushel from 1906 to 1915. Pennsylvania had 23.13 millions of bushels, 85 was the yield to the acre, and 68 was the average price in cents from 1906 to 1915. So New York was one of the leading back in 1911 to 1915 at 33.35 millions of bushels. In the last few years, Michigan, Wisconsin, Maine, and Minnesota have been rapidly gaining in production and are now all close rivals of New York. For the 10 years, 1902 to 1911 inclusive, an average of 3,230,000 acres was devoted to the potato crop in the United States, from which 304,158,000 bushels were produced, worth $177,503,000. This comprises only about 1/6 of the world's crop. 10 states along the northern border, where the climate is cooler and the crop is supplied with more moisture, produce nearly 2/3 of the potato crop in the United States. See Figures 3 and 4. Potatoes are grown, however, in more or less quantity in every state of the Union. As the agriculture in the United States becomes more stable and railroad facilities develop, there is more and more of a tendency for farm crops to be intensively grown in certain areas where soil, climate, and other factors are best suited for them. This is especially true of a crop like corn or wheat, which is neither perishable nor very bulky and can be easily shipped. Let's look at the figure 2, potato production in the United States in 1909. I guess the dots represent, one dot is 100,000 bushels. So you can see how the dots distribute around the different states. All right, this is becoming increasingly true of potatoes because of their bulkiness and partial perishableness. Let's see, figure 3, percentage of the potato crop of the United States, which is produced in each of the 15 states of largest production, 1902 to 1911. So New York, the percentage of the potato crop of the United States was 12.02%, Michigan 9.72%, Wisconsin 8.33%, Maine 7.60%, Pennsylvania 6.47%, Minnesota 5.71%, Ohio 4.66%, Iowa 3.93%, Illinois 3.39%, California 2.71%, Colorado 2.33%, New Jersey 2.30%, Washington 2.18%, Indiana 2.15%, Nebraska 2.15%, and all the others together make 24.35% of the potato crop of the United States from 1902 to 1911. Most of the potatoes raised in the United States are still grown as a cash crop in relatively small parcels on many farms. There is a tendency, however, toward the development of potato growing centers in widely separated sections of the United States. By a careful inspection of the map on page 6, one can see that these areas are located in Aroostook County, Maine, the Norfolk and Eastern Shore trucking regions of Virginia and Maryland, the Red River Valley of Minnesota and North Dakota, the Kaw Valley of Kansas, the Greeley and Carbondale districts of Colorado, and the San Joaquin and Sacramento valleys of California. Figure 4, production of potatoes in different states, 1909 and 1899, where the dark bar is 1909 and the white bar is 1899. So New York, Michigan, Wisconsin, Maine, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Iowa, Illinois, Colorado, California, Indiana, Virginia, Nebraska, New Jersey, Missouri, Washington, Kansas, North Dakota, Kentucky, Oregon, Idaho, Vermont, West Virginia, Maryland, South Dakota, Montana, Massachusetts, Tennessee, Connecticut, Utah, North Carolina, New Hampshire, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, where the dark line is 1909, the top one, and the light line, the bottom one, is 1899. So it looks like New York was a leader both in 1899 and in 1909 for the production of potatoes. The following tables from the 13th census indicate the total number of farms in certain states where potatoes were grown, the total yield, and the total amount to each farm. The latter figure shows that the total production on most farms is in excess of the family consumption. Table 6. Okay, so let's see. State, Massachusetts, County, Berkshire, 128.5 bushels to a farm. County, Hampshire, 112.5 bushels to a farm. And the county, Hampton, bushels to a farm, 119.9. Let's see, Table 6. What is this? Percentage of the improved farmland that was annually planted to potatoes in the 10 leading states. That's the bottom one. What is this top table? See, the following tables, the total number of farms where potatoes were grown, the yield, and the total amount to each farm. They don't list New York here, it looks like. Let's see, Vermont, Bennington, 169.2 bushels to a farm. Chittenden County, 154.5 bushels to a farm. And Addison County, 116.1 bushels to a farm. All right, the percentage of the improved farmland that was annually planted to potatoes in the 10 leading states, New York had 2.65% of the improved farmland annually planted to potatoes in 1902 to 1911. All right, the potato, Table 7. State, number of farms, total yield, total amount to a farm, yield to the acre from year, book 1914. Let's see, what states do we have here? All right, let's look at Massachusetts and Vermont. Massachusetts, because they're northern states. The number of farms, 36,917 farms, with 2,946,178 total yield, 79.8 per farm, and yield to the acre from yearbook 1914 was 125. Vermont had 32,709,000 farms, 4,145,630 yield, 126.7 was the amount to a farm, and 155 was the yield to the acre from yearbook 1914. It is not easy to determine the amount of the family consumption of potatoes. It varies with different regions. In a survey of 483 farm families, quite widely scattered, Funk found the average quantities and values of Irish potatoes consumed annually to a person in the following table. Table 8. The state, the bushels of Irish potatoes, and the value. In New York, it was 8 bushels of Irish potatoes with a value of $4.17. The average was 5.7 bushels, so at 8 bushels, New York was above average in consumption, and the value was on average $3.45, so the value in New York was slightly higher at $4.17. The average, it will be seen, was 5.7 bushels to a person. Oh, so in New York it was 8 bushels to a person. In the same survey was found an average of 4.6 persons in the family, making a total of 26.22 bushels of potatoes consumed to a family. Warren gives the average quantity of potatoes raised on the farm and used in the house on 106 farms in Livingston County, New York in 1909 as 50.3 bushels, and the average amount to an individual is 10.1 bushels. This is much higher than the figures Funk obtained in his survey, but even at this high figure, it is clearly seen that most farmers have at least a few bushels of potatoes to sell. Okay, let's see. So there was Warren gives the average quantity. So one says Warren GF, quote, farm management, unquote, page 24. So that's a book or an article. In a farm management survey of Chester County, Pennsylvania by Spillman, so that's Spillman, Dixon, and Billings, Farm Management Practice of Chester, CO, PA, that's County, Pennsylvania, page 26. All right, so in a farm management survey of Chester County by Spillman, it was found that the proportion of income from potatoes on 378 farms in that county was 8.9%. On these farms, 6% of the crop area was devoted to potatoes. They were found on 366 of the 378 farms operated by owners. This crop is, therefore, very general in this region, though the acreage of potatoes is usually small. On only 7 farms was the percentage of potato acreage found to exceed 20 or 12 acres. The farmers of this region grow at least enough for home use and usually some for sale. The yields to the acre are dependent upon many factors, the most important of which seem to be climate and soil moisture. Yields to the acre in the United States are low as compared with England or Germany. The average yields of potatoes to the acre for the years 1901 to 1910 inclusive in the United States, Germany, and Great Britain were, for the United States, 92.7, for Germany, 200.8, and for Great Britain, 200, respectively. European countries often grow the large, coarse, heavy-yielding sorts for stock feeding or for use in the arts, which account for some of the difference in average yields. In the United States, the average yield to the acre is higher in Maine than in any other state. The average yield in the other states is usually 90 bushels or less. Very large yields in the United States, however, are not unheard of. A yield of 700 bushels to the acre in Maine and the other potato-producing areas is not uncommon in very favorable seasons. McCune, in speaking of the possibilities of the potato, makes note of the highest recorded yield of potatoes in this country. These were grown by Miss Celinda E. Jones of Chautauqua County, New York, in the Women's National Potato Contest of 1888. She grew the white elephant variety on 1/20th of an acre at the rate of 1,061 bushels to the acre. In the United States, the average yield of potatoes from one plant is about 1/2 pound. Some plants of early Ohio have been known to yield 13 tubers weighing 2.5 pounds, and others of the same variety to produce 3 tubers weighing 1/2 ounce. The former yield is 80 times the latter. Some English experiments have produced 20 pounds of tubers to a plant, as many as 150 tubers being set on one plant. The climate of Canada is well suited to the production of potatoes. The cool summers produce a yield to the acre that compares very favorably with the best regions of the United States. The average number of acres devoted to this crop for the years 1910 to 13 was 476,000, upon which an average yield of 152.46 bushels to the acre was secured, making an average total yield for the 4 years of 72,569,000 bushels. In the 5 fiscal years, 1910 to 14, Canada exported an average of 1,451,990 bushels of potatoes each year, of which 376,406 bushels were sent to the United States. So reading this book, I didn't quite understand what a bushel is. It's an imperial and U.S. customary unit of volume based dry capacity. The old bushel was 2 kennings, an obsolete unit of dry measure, which was 4 pecks or 8 dry gallons, used mostly for agricultural products such as wheat. In modern usage, the volume is nominal, differently for each commodity. All right, going to the USDA.gov website. Let's see, potato. A carton or sack, the average weight is 100 pounds. Here we go, ILGA.gov per bushel, standard weights. Potatoes Irish per bushel is 60 pounds. And for sweet potatoes is 50 pounds. So there you go. A bushel is 60 pounds of potatoes. Thank you.